Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan. It is Thursday, November 1st. I am Nurbek Savitakhunov. Kazakh artists answered the call to create a sketch of the monument to victims of the Zhanaozen riots, which is to be erected in commemoration of the one-year anniversary of the events. The deadline is right around the corner, so the tempo is fast. Our crew checked in with the masters. Here's their report.
Artist Saken Bektiarov sees the future monument to Zhanaozen tragedy as a split rock in the shape of a yurt, standing on top of a hill, with eternal flame inside. This isn't just an art object for Bektiarov, but a chance to express his civic position on the tragedy. People will pass by and see this hill, and the hill in a step is a landmark for Kazakhs who will see it as an icon of sorts. That's the way I see it. There will be an eternal flame inside, and I feel it'll touch people's hearts. High-tech artist Serik Buksikov believes the memorial should be in line with the modern times, but he hasn't yet decided on the final design due to the lack of information. I'm not sure yet, but most important to have a visual image. The basic palettes and composition will follow. It is important to have a message that will convey what happened. That is why I want to know what exactly occurred there. I would love to speak to people who were there and then compare eyewitnesses' accounts with what happened in Argentina in the 50s or in Uzbekistan a few years back. While some artists are still struggling with raw ideas, one tandem has already secured the approval of the Aktau mayor. The draft shows a statue 90 centimeters high. The sponsor of the project is Kazmunaygas company. One of the project's authors, Vadim Nurpeisov, is skeptical about the messages in the social networks. After all, the two artists started work on their project back in February, but were waiting for the end of Zhanaozen trial and its aftermath. Now they are confident that the monument will be completed on schedule. The decision has been taken to allow or ask us to create this monument. They said that our idea and design were approved, so no contest is required. The state award winner Yerken Sergibayev believes that the activists' idea will not be implemented before December 16th, the anniversary of the tragedy. Look at the long-promised monument to the victims of the famine. It hasn't been installed after numerous talks. The professor is also annoyed by the new rock monuments in general. There is a monument to the victims of 1986 uprising, but it's laughable, and it has been from the beginning when it was just erected. One part of it, a hand, fell off and the president ordered to fix it quickly. Look at what has become of the new square or the president's park. Have you seen president's statue there? It's terrifying for anyone who sees it. The professor explains that nowadays no one in Kazakhstan shows any interest in fine arts. Arts in general are either opportunistic or simply serve material and ideological interests, sometimes even both.
It was 1 year ago that Stan.kz reporters were assaulted, yet the investigation was unable to catch the perpetrators. Champions of the media's rights state that this trend is observed all across the country. Journalists are beaten while criminals go unpunished. In the next report, we attempt to find out why.
A year ago, Stan.kz reporting crew was assaulted in the Mangistau region, but the names of attackers are still unknown. Journalist Arken Jaimergen, who received several traumatic gunshot wounds, reluctantly recalls the incident. Looks like the investigation was shut down the moment the noise around the case died down. According to the version of the investigative authorities, this was just a robbery attempt. However, we insist that the attackers were carrying out someone's order. We had been followed several days before the attack. In my opinion, even if they are caught, they will not be charged with intentional assault. A year after the incident, Mangistau Department of Internal Affairs has nothing new to report, and the press is not even let in, stopped at the inquiry office. Our chief is not in the office. Media defender Tamara Kalieva remembers every incident involving reporters and editors. She says that unfortunately such criminal cases never reach courts. Every year we have up to 20 cases of attacks against journalists. However, I don't remember a single attacker has been caught. Adding this to the number of other similar crimes, I believe the percentage of crimes solved in our country is really tiny. A recent high-profile incident occurred in Uralsk on April 19th. Journalist Lukman Akhmedyarov was assaulted by a group of 5 men. He ended up in a hospital. The police later claimed that it was just hooliganism. However, after a series of press conferences and support actions, the case was qualified as a murder attempt. None of these crimes have been properly assessed. The police is always trying to qualify these incidents as domestic crimes. In case with Ashat Sharipjanov, the attack was written off as a car accident, and in case with your colleagues, as hooliganism. A year ago, after receiving first aid treatments, cameraman Hassan Amilov and reporter Arken Jaimirgen spent 8 hours in the Mangistau police department. After questioning the details of the attack, facial composites of suspects' faces were recreated. Interestingly, one of them was identified by local oil workers as the guy who visited them during the strike. He dropped a hint that he had access to the higher authorities and promised to help workers solve their problems. However, investigators ignored both this testimony and requests of stunt company, whose reporters were injured while covering a labor conflict in the region.
A resident of Uralsk came out to the Abai monument in support of the Not a Day Without Protest campaign organized against the sentences handed out in the Zhanaozen case. The single-person campaign is in its third day, and civil activists from other regions are urged to join in. Organizers plan to hold these pickets daily until the tragic event's one-year anniversary on December 16th.
This is my protest. I'm against such persecution of political leaders. I demand freedom for Vladimir Kozlov, Roza Tulitaeva, and Arona Tabek.
The official tally of political prisoners in Russia amounts to 200 people, a number voiced at a demonstration on the day commemorating victims of political prisoners and political repressions in Moscow. Around 1,500 people gathered in the freezing rain, including relatives of those prisoners, calling to unite their forces. Interestingly, Kazakhstan was at the center of the discussion. More details next.
We raise funds for prisoners of May 6. A rally in support of political prisoners of Russia took place in freezing rain in the center of Moscow. These few who decided to show up in this weather received acknowledgments from the stage. There are a little over 1,000 people. We would like to thank those who made it here. There are about 200 political prisoners in Russia, and the leaders of non-systemic opposition, including Udaltsov, Kasparov, and even the leader of a social movement, Aynur Kurmanov, came to support them. Kazakh opposition has become a regular at the Russian political scene. Russia is even ahead of Kazakhstan in terms of repressions, which has always been a testing ground for inhumane actions of the authorities. It was hard to imagine that one day prisoners of May 6 may exist in Russia, which is believed to be far more democratic than Kazakhstan in many respects. Indeed, there is a major political prisoner, Mr. Khodorkovsky. However, arresting 13 people who simply attend the rally is something out of line for New Russia. All those captured in this video have violated the law, according to the police. They were detained on that very day, along with another 600 people. Then they were released to be soon arrested again. The arrested include the director of the travel agency, an anarchist, a chemist, extreme right skinhead. They barely share anything in common except the fact that they all have attended the rally of May 6 on Bolotnaya. Yet all of them have been in jail for the past few months under various charges. Look who the authorities sent to us. It is the investigators who fabricate criminal cases and the prison guards who humiliate our guys in the wards. Sergei Udaltsov, one of Russia's top leftists, can also become the main prisoner in Russia. Following the controversial film on NTV about the leaders of non-systemic opposition, he is frequently summoned to the investigative committee. He was charged with preparing riots. In the meantime, all of this gives a feeling of déjà vu to the civil society activist from Kazakhstan, Aynur Kurmanov.
Перед Болотной площадью был расстрел рабочих нефтяников.
Prior to the march on Bolotnaya Square, we had workers killed. Before the case of Bolotnaya, we had the leader of Volga Democratic Party convicted. Even before the release of the protest anatomy on NTV, we had participants of Zhanaozen riots receiving sentences. It is obvious that regimes tend to learn from each other's experiences. The CSTO established a gendarme regime, which applies repressive measures against citizens. Still, we have to fight by forming trade unions and political parties. The party and the movement leaders and relatives of the arrested urged the people to unite, to be able to change the situation. In the meantime, the rally on the day of political repression, victims gathered about 1,000 people.
The nation's Prime Minister Serik Akhmetov paid a surprise visit to the lower house of parliament along with his entire cabinet. Such a visit only occurs once every fiscal year, discounting joint sessions at the adoption of the budget. But since the financial document has been approved for next year, his appearance in the lower chamber was all the more intriguing. As it turned out, Akhmetov came with amendments to the budget, ordering major cuts in spending, which seriously angered the deputies. Our crew reports on the change of mood in parliament.
The 2013 state budget must be significantly reduced. On Wednesday, the entire body of senior government officials appeared in the parliament and immediately suggested to reduce budget spending by nearly $1.2 billion. The finance minister, feeling the upcoming pressure of MPs, immediately reassured that social programs will not be touched. But that didn't save Bulat Jamishev from the attack of MPs.
Сегодня Булат Бидакевич в целом для правительства и парламента нерадостный день.
In general, this is not a pleasant day for the parliament or government, since we're cutting down the already approved budget. Although, to be just and objective, I have to say that we're not touching social programs. Nevertheless, budget cuts are in progress, and it's a process which needs to be considered. The MPs even suggested ministers areas where they can scrape funds and referred to the very data provided by the finance ministry. The proposal included reducing office space still unused in the building of state departments. The MPs came up with as much as over 90,000 square meters of unused area. Without weakening the pressure, the parliamentarians also reminded officials about the untapped billions of dollars in the treasury. It appears that in 5 years, the total amount of unspent money equals to annual budgets of two neighboring states, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Ministers seemed to back off a bit, saying that no budget cuts will be made. According to our laws, these adjustments of the budget are not considered as sequestration. We're relocating some funds. The second question we face here is the issue of responsibility and discipline. The funds that administrators of programs couldn't manage to exploit on time are the ones that we relocated. But in reality, it turned out that the senior officials just played with words, and even the Prime Minister failed to convince the MPs. Moreover, Vladislav Kosarev, a member of the Communist Party, actually accused cabinet members of corruption and ties with criminals, although in the end he directed his wrath to the entire state bureaucracy.
Люди думают не как построить, не как получить что-то отдачи.
State officials are not concerned about building something new and bringing benefits to the citizens. They only think about appropriating state funds which should be paid and which procurement tended to take advantage of. It is quite evident. Meanwhile, the funds of some projects are actually planned to be spent in the criminal world.
Их пустить в криминальную среду.
After changing the angry zeal for a lyrical mood, the communists asked the cabinet to consider the aspirations of ordinary people. The veteran of the parliamentary minority even elaborated whom exactly he had in mind: the people of his generation. Kosarev directly asked to allocate at least $1 billion from the big budget pie to increase pension payments. Younger MPs, however, seemed to ignore their pensioner colleague and almost unanimously approved amendments related to budgetary cuts.
In other news, candidates to serve in law enforcement may now be put under a lie detector. The draft of the law requiring these tests was discussed in Parliament on Wednesday, October 31st.
If the MPs will pass the bill, all future law enforcement officials will need to go through a polygraph test. Kalmuhamed Kasimov, who has already shared his doubts regarding the validity of the research, said that this practice could be useful.
Конечно, это мировой опыт есть.
This practice has been used internationally, and it goes without saying that we need to know as much as possible about the candidates. For instance, the issue of alcohol or drug abuse. There are many questions that we can clarify during the interview.
Minister of Agriculture Asaljan Mamutbekov was on an official visit in South Kazakhstan region. He met with members of the program to the village with a diploma in Tulkuber district, handing the young specialist veterinary toolkits. Zootechnicians with years of experience appreciated the gifts, yet that may not be enough in order to solve the issues affecting their field.
Without any extra hype, the minister visited a young family taking part in the program, encouraging recent university graduates to work in rural areas. Their new house in Tulkubas is also mortgaged in accordance with the project. 479 similar loans have been registered in the southern Kazakhstan region alone for the total amount of $6.6 million. This part of the minister's trip was pleasant, unlike what lied ahead. We've sent a letter to the committee chairman and also posted it on the minister's website. We did it about a month and a half ago. Veteran veterinarians of the Tulkubash district referred to their message posted on the minister's blog, but likely misplaced or ignored. While waiting for the official, they spoke of the problems to the press and said they lack quite a lot of resources for proper operation. We don't have enough specialists, and the condition for veterinary service aren't good at all. We don't even have a single car. But how can we operate without one? No problem is ever resolved, and yet this is 21st century.
Сейчас ни одной машины нет.
Asuljan Mamedbekov promised the vets that next year the province will see new cars, refrigerators, tools and medicines. Timely delivery of various vaccines against lethal cattle diseases will be organized as well. The official also shared plans for environmentally friendly incineration of the dead animals. We just need to buy the incinerators for burning the cattle remains. We need to stop burning them in Becker's pits or burying them and just switch to incinerators, which only leaves ashes at the end. And it's far safer and easier. At the end of his visit, the minister donated kits with veterinary equipment to young vets. Only 3 of them were present out of almost 2,000 who agreed to move and work in the village.
From each cow according to its abilities to each according to its needs. That is how Kazakh district farmers frame their philosophy, albeit unsuccessfully thus far. Back-breaking bank loans and the lack of own feed seriously hamper the development of farms. Even the agricultural program Sabaghat did not motivate cattle to record-setting production. A total of 29 households in the area took out loans from the Fund for Financial Support of Agriculture. Our correspondents attempted to find out why cows and bulls are fast losing weight.
How much milk can one cow deliver? The answer depends on the type of fodder the animal receives. But these cows haven't seen good rations in quite a while. Rumor has it that cattle in other regions is even fed strawberries, but the old farm in Kazakhstan can only offer hay and alfalfa. It'll take hundreds of dollars to bring 10 tons of combination fodder from Shymkent. For instance, one bag of fodder costs around $5. If we had our own production of combination fodder in the region, it would make life much easier for farmers. Calculations of how much it will cost to feed a herd of 300 cows are not looking good for farmers, coming at around $132,000 a year. Every farm used to grow its own corn, pumpkin and safflower seeds. Now only a few can afford the luxury of having their own feeding fields. Kulpash was among the lucky ones as she took part in the state program Sibaga. I had mortgaged my house for $40,000, an apartment in the city for $26,000, as well as 47 cows, and only after that I was finally given a credit of $50,000. The banks only offer a high interest rate of up to 15%. The credit was spent to purchase 3 bulls of Santa Gertrudis breed in the Almaty region and 50 local cows. The farm produced 135 quintals of meat and 47.5 quintals of milk. It is not much, but it should be noted that the farmer supplies milk to kindergartens and a hospital in Zhalagash. I'm a regular customer here, and there's always a stable price for meat at $8 per kilogram. It's 10 or 12 in other places. The cow needs to be fed well, says the head of the farm. One may expect good milk yields and gain in weight only with nutritious feeding provided. The state program Sibaga was specifically created for farmers, but it is still the same system of credits with security mortgages. This creates a sort of a vicious circle as farmers need good milk yields in order to pay out credits, which in turn are needed to get good fodder for cattle.
Kazakhstan topped the list of the most drinking countries in Central Asia. According to the World Health Organization, there is an average of 6 liters of alcohol a year for every citizen of the republic. But many suspect the number may amount to 11 liters per head. In all, 1/3 of the population consumes alcohol, while more than 200,000 people are registered in outpatient departments for drug addicts. Why are we ruining ourselves with drink is explored in the next story.
Astana City administration prepared statistics for the day of refusal from alcohol consumption. The rate of alcohol consumption is allegedly so high that it may soon cause the entire nation to degenerate. 6 to 7 liters of alcohol consumption per capita is a very high rate, whereas 8 liters or more is catastrophically high and puts the entire nation in danger of genetic degeneracy. However, the fact that we may have reached the level of 11 liters of alcohol consumption per capita, taking into account the unofficial statistics, in my opinion, is a very serious situation. Experts even calculated the density of alcohol, which makes 1 liquor store per 210 citizens of Kazakhstan. In the meantime, whatever destroys the nation seems to be feeding the entrepreneur Yerbol Seribek. Sales of alcoholic beverages make up more than 20% of total revenue of Yerbol supermarket. Nothing personal, strictly business. As suppliers, our job is to provide for the customer. Alcohol sales happen to be very lucrative. As long as people buy it, we will keep selling it. However, we still obey the laws. For instance, we do not sell alcohol past 11 p.m. 13 years ago, the singer and producer Kudaraly Bolmanov managed to pull something that seemed absurd back then. He held a dry wedding. Some guests were not happy and he had to provide a separate room for them, recalls the singer. Nevertheless, the wedding went well. The fun does not depend on alcohol. Instead, it has to do with the pure mind of the person. After all, the people come to cordially congratulate you and not to get wasted. Thank God nowadays many weddings are held without alcohol, and this trend makes me sincerely happy. Time limits on sales, designated areas for alcohol consumption, and age limits, along with explanatory measures and free treatment. All this is part of standard methods of the anti-alcohol campaign offered by the state. However, alcohol still remains the cheapest and the most popular way of stress relief in the country.
On the same day that the list was announced, an anti-alcohol campaign kicked off in the country, being held for the first time in Karaganda. Student activists, jointly with the Center for a Healthy Lifestyle, organized a campaign called Killed by Alcohol in a Shopping Mall. Details next.
The campaign drew attention not only of the young target audience but also older generation. People were joining the anti-alcohol campaign even accidentally while heading home after work or just having a walk. Student activists were singing and dancing on the improvised stage for more than an hour, giving out gift brochures and explaining dangers of alcohol consumption. All our campaigns have to bring a result, even if it's just a drop in a bucket. It will still bring great benefits by attracting students to an active social life. It is already a big step to ensure that students are not engaged in harmful activities, such as doing drugs, smoking, or other similar things in their leisure time.
One day without alcohol, even though there are no official prohibitions. Sober specialists from Almaty think that good old Soviet methods of increasing prices could be used to reduce alcohol consumption. However, people do not share the optimism. Find out details from the next report.
A former industrial engineer, Adilkhan is now a patient at a rehab center for drug and alcohol addicts. Like many others, Adilkhan became an alcoholic by drinking socially. First he lost his job and then his friends. First of all, it socially supports people. There are plenty of reasons causing people to drink. Many have lost their jobs and failed to cope. Others lost their families. Whereas some people just love to drink with friends because they have nothing else to do. It doesn't seem dangerous at first, but it sure leads to harmful consequences. Addiction treatment specialists have calculated the alcohol consumption rate went down within a year, but not significantly. Raising the prices for alcohol would reduce the demand. Thus, by 2020, we expect a half-liter bottle of vodka to cost about $10. These calculations are very doubtful in terms of logic. Nightclubs, where it doesn't seem appropriate not to drink, bring up different arguments and statistics. If it becomes normal for the person to drink, he's not going to give up. You may raise prices 10 or 20 times, but the person will still drink. The drinking habit lasts forever. While the entire country is learning about the alarming reports on the National Day of Refusal from Alcohol Consumption, young people are still going out to cafes and bars. Indeed, they will always find a reason. For instance, the celebration of Halloween on Wednesday.
A Cannes Festival Award for corporate films called Silver Dolphin was given to Kazakhstan. The Kazakh short was made at the order of the Ministry of Economic Development. However, there are many who make films and clips just as a hobby in Kazakhstan. The difference between them is in the set goals. More about this creative breed in the next and final story.
There is a country in our world.
This short video won the runner-up place among over 600 others. The work was presented by Kazakhstan at the Cannes Festival in support of promoting Astana for the right to host the World Expo 2017. Since it is quite clear who commissioned the video, it appears to be the product of compromise. Oftentimes, we must do what our client asks from us because they may know their business better. But we know what is best from a creative point. And these cases, just like many other companies, we have to work with the client. But after so many years, we bond with them and offer options which they are ready to accept. It took 4 months for the initial idea to reach the final stage. The creators say that the project is intended for branding purpose rather than commercial use. It didn't bring the team a lot of money, but certain benefits were still achieved. The production of the video was a government order and the actual figures are not disclosed. This is a very prestigious award, which is a dream come true for any ad producer, and we're happy that our company received the prize. The creators of this parody video obviously dream about canes as well. Within a day, their work became a hit among Kazakhstan's internet community and received enormous feedback. The video was produced by a team of bloggers in just 3 hours. Not a penny was spent and everything was driven by sheer enthusiasm, since the assets are estimated by the number of likes and views. We didn't mean to portray anything negative or oppositional. It is not an order of the Chinese intelligence services. We did this because it was interesting for the online world. For us, it's the key thing when we pick the next subject and produce a video. Y Vision's portfolio includes even serious works, but their creativity always needs a news hook and an arsenal of equipment. The viewers are always there, ready for more. We can always compete, and it is necessary to do so. But for some reason, we have this attitude in Kazakhstan when locally produced films are automatically assumed to be of low quality. We even think to run an experiment and produce something small, then upload it on the internet and say that it was made by Americans. And I bet that everyone will say, "Whoa, that is so cool." The more experienced and acclaimed producers don't make hide their corporate secrets. The key thing for ad makers and producers of similar products is to avoid overplaying with the product or producing something to appease ourselves, so we could say what a great product we've made. One thing bloggers and creative minds alike agree upon is that money and tools are not enough to create something special. A mind that thinks in the right direction is the most important thing.
That is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.